Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's kick off today's video with a story where our OP supervisor tried to teach everyone a lesson by ordering searches of every third vehicle, resulting in a colossal traffic jam that held up a 3-star general and nearly cost the company a $1 billion contract. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Supervisor got mad we searched his car, so he changed the rules and delayed a general. A few years back, I worked security for a major military contractor. The job was simple on paper: monitor entry points, perform random vehicle searches, and make sure nothing and no one unauthorized got in. Pretty standard stuff. Until you factored in our supervisor, who had a gift for turning petty power trips into full-blown operational disasters. Now, one of our responsibilities was using a rotating random number to determine which vehicles to search. On a typical morning, we'd search every 15th to 25th vehicle and every contractor truck without exception. These mornings were cold, dark, and miserable, with hundreds of employees arriving between 0500 and 0800. Our system worked well enough to keep things flowing while still hitting the search quota. But that changed one icy winter morning when our supervisor, let's call him Frank, came in on the day shift. He clocked in at 0400, and lo and behold, he was the 15th vehicle. Standard procedure kicked in, and we flagged his car for a full search. We were thorough but fast. Still, Frank didn't appreciate being held up in the cold like everyone else and decided this minor inconvenience warranted a full-scale petty meltdown. So Frank decided to teach us a lesson by changing the search number to 3. That meant we had to pull over and search every third vehicle, with hundreds of cars showing up in a short window and only enough space to inspect 3 vehicles at a time. This was a recipe for disaster. Normally, when the search lanes were full, we'd let traffic flow until a spot opened up. Not this time. Under Frank's orders, we blocked the gate entirely whenever the search area was full, waiting until all 3 inspections were complete before letting through 2 vehicles and pulling over the third again. Rinse and repeat. By 0600, traffic had backed up all the way to the main road. By 0630, cars were at a dead stop 2 miles away. People were calling the security office demanding answers. Intersections were blocked, commuters were stuck, and eventually the local police got involved trying to manage the growing chaos. Then the phone call came in. Turns out a 3-star general had been caught in the traffic jam, sitting in a limo with diplomatic tags, running late for a classified briefing. He was already fuming when he finally reached the checkpoint, only to find we were still performing the same searches that had caused the delay in the first place. Once word reached the top brass that this mess was caused by one man's ego trip, the hammer dropped hard. We got immediate orders to cease all searches for the rest of the day. The gates were thrown open and traffic surged through. For most of us, it was another weird day on the job. But for Frank, that day was the start of his very public fall from grace. Apparently, the general's office made some furious calls to corporate, and it was discovered that our little traffic jam had caused the contractor to miss a deadline, one attached to a $1 billion defense contract. Corporate was furious. The contractor almost lost the deal entirely, and the situation had to be salvaged by executives flying out to explain that the person responsible had been reassigned. Frank narrowly avoided being fired, thanks in part to union protections and some begging on his part, but the punishment fit the crime in its own poetic way. He was demoted to regular security guard status, stripped of his supervisory title, and because he was now at the bottom of the seniority list, he was stuck working all the worst shifts and mandatory overtime. Remember that freezing early morning checkpoint post he used to lord over? That became his new regular assignment. No heater, no shelter, just Frank standing out in the cold, gritting his teeth as he waved through every car. The rest of us couldn't help but smirk. 2 weeks later, we found out the contract had been renegotiated. The military contractor got to keep the deal after promising that corrective action had been taken and that this sort of delay would never happen again. And to their credit, they were right. It didn't. Frank's reign of terror ended not with a bang, but with a very slow, cold crawl through a line of irritated commuters. Malicious compliance had never felt so justified. And best of all, no innocent jobs were lost. Just one very petty man learning that when you weaponize a clipboard and a little bit of authority, karma might just show up in the form of a very angry general in gridlock. This is the perfect example of why petty power trips always backfire. Frank thought he was teaching everyone a lesson by cranking the search frequency to every third car, but all he really did was create a traffic nightmare that caught a general in gridlock, exactly the kind of thing that makes corporate execs cringe. And our second story. Friend covered my meal against my will, then wanted reimbursement weeks later. Nope. About 10 years ago in college, I met up with some friends towards the end of my night and was a bit inebriated. I had a reputation among my friends that no matter how drunk I was always good at math. It was my minor after all. We ended up hitting up a diner for some food, and when the time came, we got split checks. Drunk me grabs my card from my wallet and was waiting for the waitstaff to come collect payment, and someone I considered a friend at the time refused to let me pay my bill. She claimed I was too drunk and wouldn't be able to do the math for the tip, so she would just pay it. After going back and forth with her for a few minutes and getting increasingly offended and annoyed with her, she takes my check and puts my card down on the table in front of me. When the waiter comes, she tells them that she's paying for the 2 checks in her hand. Fast forward to a couple weeks later, and she tells me that I owe her $15. I asked for what, and she said my food at the diner plus the tip and surcharge for having a party larger than 8. I let her know I tried paying my bill that night a few times, and she wouldn't let me. But more importantly, I never asked her to pay for me or say I would pay her back. She wasn't happy she was out $15, but she said she was paying for it. Edit. I'm also a girl, and the other girl and I are both straight. A lot of people are saying it was her flirting or trying to ask me out. And even if it was, I wasn't interested. Why would she renege on something she'd agreed to? What a crappy thing to do. At least she didn't say you were too drunk to remember you would pay her back. Maybe she was drunker than you. And our next story. She gave me strict rules, I followed them, and she got her hands dirty. At my last job, I worked as a middle manager coordinating an after-hours care program for adults. My boss, Hetty, was a micromanaging tyrant who ran the day program too. I shared an office with the day program manager, and since the program shared clients, I'd occasionally check in with those clients during their day activities to ask about their evening preferences. Unfortunately, Hetty had a firm rule. I wasn't allowed to get involved with the day program, involvement being anything that didn't keep me locked in my office. She was always tightening the noose, cutting my admin time, stacking more duties, and setting arbitrary rules just to catch people out. Her other favorite policy, male staff couldn't provide personal care for female clients. It was blatant gender discrimination, and I argued it multiple times, but she wouldn't budge. One day, I was speaking to a client about what they wanted for dinner in the evening program when Hetty came swooping in like a vulture. She called me into her office and gave me a full dressing down for interfering with the day program. I was warned, stay in my lane or face disciplinary action. Fine. I knew this had come back to bite her. Not even a week later, the day program was wrapping up for the day. Only a few clients were left, including a female client who needed a change of clothes. The only worker left from the day team was male, and per Hetty's policy, he couldn't assist her. He came to my office door and said, Jane needs a change of clothes. With Hetty in her office next door, door wide open, I raised my voice just enough and replied, oh, I'd love to help, but I've been expressly told not to interfere with the day program. Maybe Hetty can help. I think she's in her office. The grin he gave me was everything. He knocked on Hetty's door and passed the issue along. I stayed at my desk and heard her scramble, clearly flustered. Eventually, she huffed out to help the client herself. Later, she came storming back to yell at me for not being a team player. I reminded her that just a few days ago, she threatened to discipline me for doing anything outside my assigned hours. She called me deliberately obtuse, but I calmly replied, I was just following instructions. She couldn't argue with that, but she did escalate the bullying afterward. It was already headed that way, though. I burned out 2 years later and had to leave, but that one act of delicious, malicious compliance still gives me joy. I've been in a healthier workplace for over 2 years now with supportive management and amazing coworkers, but I still see Hetty around town sometimes, and every single time I flip her the bird. I would have started looking for a job elsewhere and not have stuck around a couple of years to burn out. And our last story. Karen tried to sue me after trespassing on my farm. I'm a farmer, been doing it for years now. I've got a decent spread of land, nothing fancy, just honest work and wide skies. My animals are my pride and joy. Some dairy cows, a few ornery goats, a flock of busy chickens, and one very temperamental bull named Martin. He's a beautiful beast, huge, broad-shouldered, and meaner than a snake in a sleeping bag if you look at him wrong. But I love him like the rest of them. One of the best things about farm life is the peace. No traffic, no nonsense, no people up in your business, just bird song, hay in the air, and the occasional moo. So you can imagine how fast my peace shattered a couple of months ago when a shiny black SUV, chrome rims, tinted windows, the whole Suburban Warrior package came crunching up my gravel drive uninvited. Out pops this woman, let's call her Karen. You know the type, sunglasses the size of her ego, purse worth more than my monthly feed bill, and a voice sharp enough to shear wool. She doesn't even knock, just marches onto my property with her 3 kids in tow, barking like a general on a caffeine bender. We're here to take pictures with your cute little animal, she declares, like she's just announced her royal arrival. I raise an eyebrow and keep my tone polite. Ma'am, this here's a working farm, not a petting zoo, but if you stick to the gravel paths and don't go climbing into any pens, you're welcome to look around. Oh, don't be ridiculous, she snaps. I've done goat yoga. I know how to handle farm animals. Before I can tell her Martin doesn't care about her warrior pose, she's off, marching straight toward the fenced-in pasture where he's kept. The kids follow her like ducklings, and she's yelling something about getting the photo bomb of the century. Now, Martin's not a fan of strangers, especially loud ones. He's chill most days, but he's still a 2,000-pound wall of muscle with horns, and I always warn visitors to stay well back. But Karen, of course, climbs right up on the fence, balancing like she's about to conquer the world, phone in hand and posing like she's in a calendar shoot. Martin's ears twitch, he snorts, stomps a hoof, just one little step forward, and that's all it takes. Karen lets out a shriek like she just saw the Grim Reaper. She flails, loses her balance, and lands flat on her back in a glorious pile of fresh, sticky, swampy mud. Designer jacket, white leggings, the works. All now one shade of brown. I jog over because, well, I'm not a monster. I ask her, "You all right, ma'am? Need a hand?" She scrambles to her feet, flinging mud in every direction like a dog shaking off water. Then she wheels on me, face redder than a sunburned tomato. "You could have killed me. That beast should be locked up. I'm going to sue you for everything you've got." And just like that, she storms off, dripping with mud and righteous indignation, shooing her kids into the SUV like nothing happened. I figured that would be the end of it. Silly lady, bad decisions, lesson learned. But no, 2 weeks later I get served. Karen's suing me, claims of emotional trauma, endangerment, and willful negligence. Wants damages, court costs, and a formal apology. Well, here's the thing she didn't know. Before I was a farmer, I was a trial lawyer for over 2 decades. Retired early, hung up the tie, picked up the pitchfork. But I still remember how to file a motion. So I dig into my files, pulled up the camera footage. I've got security cameras watching every gate and pen, including Martin's. Got a couple of witnesses, my ranch hand and a neighbor who saw the whole mess, even printed out the local agritourism laws, which protect farmers like me from exactly this kind of ridiculous lawsuit. And then, for good measure, I countersued for legal fees. Court day comes, she walks in wearing enough perfume to fumigate a barn and a smirk like she's already planning how to spend my assets. Her lawyer looks slick, probably charges by the syllable. I roll in with my boots, jeans, and a denim work shirt, thick folder under my arm, and zero patience for drama. The judge reads the documents, watches the footage, looks over the witness statements. Barely 15 minutes later, he bangs the gavel. Case dismissed. Karen's ordered to pay my legal fees. As she storms out, she hisses, "This isn't over." I just tipped my hat and said, "Ma'am, I think you'll find it very much is." Since then, I haven't had a single wannabe influencer set foot on my property. This had me laughing out loud. What a legend Martin is. There's something wonderful about a grumpy old bull enforcing boundaries better than any no trespassing sign ever could. I love how life on the farm returned to its easy rhythm once word spread, and how even the neighborhood kids now know to keep their distance. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.